We start to feel all this kind of misplaced responsibility that if we take a break, that somehow the whole world is going to fall apart. And one of the tools, emotional coping tools I talk about in the book is loving detachment, which is our capacity to actually, at the end of a day, just give everything over. If you're a parent, it's giving over all of your stress and fears about your children. You're in work environment, it's giving over. You've done all you can do in one day. You have to trust God with it and actually leave the rest.
This is StRest. I'm Kerstin Lindquist, health coach, author, and Emmy award-winning TV host. I've committed to helping people reduce stress through impressive health science, attainable mindset change, and biblical truth. Let's have a real conversation with zero judgment and endless solutions that you can use. You aren't alone. You can do this. Let me help you reduce stress and make room for rest. Hi, friends. Before we jump into today's episode all about resilience, which is the good stress and how we build it, I just want to say thank you so much for all of the great feedback. I am loving hearing where you are listening to the podcast, how you're listening to it. I'm loving all the little nuances and what you're getting out of it and what you want to hear more of. Please continue to email me. And while you're at it, make sure you go to my website, Kerstin-Lindquist.com. That's Kerstin-Lindquist, and sign up for my newsletter. I usually give you one great science tidbit, one great faith tidbit, and then a whole bunch of coupon codes for fantastic things that I love. So once a week, sometimes twice a week, it comes out. You'll want to get on that newsletter. This is an episode where if you're listening to it in the car and you listen to it with other people, you might want to put your kids in the car with you to listen to this one, because we have Sarah Boyd on the show. She is a child and adolescent development expert. She is the founder of Resilient Little Hearts. It's a movement dedicated to empowering parents, teachers, and professionals to cultivate resilience and emotional health in children as well as in themselves. This community has quickly grown to hundreds of thousands of people, and it currently offers education on the topics of high sensitivity, overcoming fear and anxiety, emotionally healthy parenting, and building resilience in children. Sarah holds a master's degree in educational psychology and a diploma in the neuroscience of leadership. In this episode, we take all of that and we apply it to adults. So yes, overstimulation is a thing. Her new book, Turn Down the Noise, talks about that and some of the things that you can do to help build your resilience, but also to get away from that iceberg of anxiety and overwhelm. But like I said, if you have some kids, put them in the car with you, because she talks about a lot of things that'll be great for the kids to hear. It's a wonderful, wonderful conversation, and it happens in the future. Take a listen. Hey, quick break. Are you feeling your age a little bit? You know, joints or maybe brittle hair or face, skin? One supplement can address all of that. It's collagen. And my favorite by far is Ancient Nutrition. Collagen is the most abundant protein in the human body, so we need it. And Ancient Nutrition is my favorite because it's made from real quality ingredients that I know that I can trust. In just 2 scoops of their multi-collagen protein, you are getting 20 grams of protein to help support your hair, your skin, your nails, your joints. And as an added bonus, you're also getting vitamin C and probiotics. That's for gut and digestive health support. It's the perfect addition to any beverage. You can put it in your shake and things like that, but also overnight oats, baked goods. But I put the unflavored multi-collagen protein in my black coffee every single morning. It's perfect because it mixes really easily and it's virtually tasteless. I especially also love their strawberry lemonade because it's very super refreshing in the summer, but whatever, you need to get your collagen. Multi-collagen protein is more than just collagen. It's real results that you can see and feel from ingredients that you can trust. That's why I'm talking about it. Right now, you can get 25% off. You go to ancientnutrition.com and put in the code STRESSED25. That's STREST 25. STRESSED25 at ancientnutrition.com. And that's going to get you 25% off site-wide. Make sure you grab my favorite for the dark coffee, which is your multi-collagen protein, but then also try something else as well. You're going to love it. That's StRest 25 for 25% off. Get your collagen. Well, Sarah Boyd, thank you so much for joining us from the future. You aren't here. Where are you?
Yes, I am in the future. We have been living in the States for the past 8 years, but we just recently relocated back to Australia. So, as you can hear from my accent, I'm Australian, and I am joining you from a day ahead of you today.
There you go. I love that. Yeah. I've always wanted to go to Australia. It's one of the places on my list. What made you go back and forth, come to the States and then go back?
Yeah, so we came to the States to grow our business and expand our business. So we run a couple of different businesses. And then our kids are just hitting that age, they're 10 and 12, where we were starting to think, do we want to come back? And we just thought, if we're going to come back, we need to come back preferably before the late teens if we can. So really family and just the culture and that sort of stuff. So we kind of live between two now, actually. Our businesses are still in the States. So we're back and forth a lot, but our kids are at school and family and stuff is here. And so we just come over for work now.
You know, off topic, but not off topic because this entire podcast is about health. Do you feel like it's a healthier lifestyle in Australia than it is in the US?
I mean, it's such a great question because I do feel like you get the perspective when you live in multiple cultures to see like what is the culture of different things. I think some things are healthier and I think some things are healthier in the States. There is definitely less pressure in the lifestyle in Australia, a bit more relaxed. I think it's the culture of Australia. So that sense of having to keep things up all the time isn't as intense here, although it still is in pockets. But what I would say is incredible about the States is just how positive people are in general about doing something and going after dreams and that sort of stuff that I think some Australian culture can sometimes be a little bit down on. So I think it's both. I feel very privileged that we've got to kind of live between the two and kind of get to have that perspective.
Do your kids prefer one or the other?
Yeah, they love both. They are more actually weirdly here. So they love Australia. They were 2 and 4 when we first moved. Their experience was they basically grew up in America. But I think it is the very laid back lifestyle, the beaches, and our family is here as well. So that's a big thing for them.
It's wonderful. So those were totally kind of off topic questions, but I'm always very interested because I'm always looking at places to go. So
You'll have to come and visit. I'll tell you all the places.
I want to. Absolutely. You're the founder of Resilient Little Hearts. I love the name. A child and adolescent development expert. But really, your topic of expertise, among other things, and holding a master's degree in education, is resilience. What do many people misunderstand about the development of resilience? And what is resilience? I think people get that confused as well.
Yes. It's really interesting. When I used to do podcasts pre-COVID times, I actually had many people ask me, I've never heard of the word resilience. And I think the world went through this big thing and lots of people began to talk about it. But I think some people don't still understand what it is. So I love that we're just talking about it really plainly. Resilience is essentially your mental and emotional capacity to handle stress. So it is your capacity to go through something challenging or hard and come out the other side kind of stronger for it. I think what's misunderstood from an adult perspective is resilience isn't something that makes you stoic or you don't have any negative emotions or you don't go through a messy middle or you don't wrestle with grief and frustration and all of that sort of stuff before you come, quote, out the other side of this challenge. We all go through challenges, and depending on how life altering they are, it can take a lot of time to get out the other side. What we don't understand too about the development of resilience, particularly in children, is that it develops slowly over time. So it is in the context of safe relationships that resilience develops through childhood. And then as we become an adult, essentially it is a dance between stress and recovery. And one of the reasons I wrote the book is because I became quite concerned that our modern idea of recovery, people weren't actually doing. And so it's not that stress is bad. Doing something challenging is good. We need stress to get out of bed in the morning, but we also need recovery. But what we think is recovery is not really happening for a lot of people.
Yeah, no, that's so, so true. And while the topic of stress is the name of the podcast, people need to understand, and we talk about it just about every show, that there is a balance between good and bad stress. And we need that good stress to grow and to thrive. And actually, there's been some studies recently that talk about people who have too little stress aren't healthy, just like if you have too much of the bad stress. So it's wonderful that you point out this ability to develop resilience and be able to, our bodies can metabolize stress.
100%. And we grow in our capacity. It's how we grow as human beings, and we create meaning and feel like we have built a meaningful life, is that we've done something that was challenging or scary, or we've walked through a situation that maybe we would have preferred not to have gone through, and we kind of made it through the other side. And so many people report deeper levels of connection with God, deeper levels of connection with family and close friends when they've gone through that. But it is an important thing not to kind of make stress in and of itself evil, because stress is actually a really, really good thing. The problem becomes when it's just we're not going into recovery. And so everyone's probably heard the traditional example of if we were out in the wild and a tiger kind of came in front of us, where we're supposed to have, it's really healthy to have that stress response, to respond to that immediate and in the moment stressor. But essentially, once the tiger's gone away, hopefully our body is cascading with rest and repair and the emotions and actually just calming down. So if you think about, a lot of times people talk about building resilience almost like we would build muscle in a gym. So we go in and we do our weights, and then we have a rest and we come back, and maybe the next time we do weights that are slightly harder for us. And slowly over time, we've built muscle. But what I, again, wanted to discuss in the book is a lot of what's happening in recovery, because I think what's happening for a lot of people is we're going into the gym, we're working our muscles, and then we're taking those weights and walking around for the rest of the day with them. And then we're going
Still holding them.
Still holding them, and then going back into the quote unquote gym or the stressful situation and wondering why we're fatigued and don't have this buoyant capacity. And so that's why both the dance between two is so important.
So give me a real world example. And I love the weightlifting one, because that's so true. That's an example of good stress. Exercise, weightlifting, breaking down, building up. When I go over the good stressors in life, cold plunge, sauna, weightlifting, intermittent fasting done the right way, all of those things can be good stressors. But in this situation, what's a real world example of not resting?
So I think a lot of the good stresses too are maybe you put your hand up for a project at work that really inspires you, or you launch out and launch a business that you wanted to do, or you finally start writing or do a creative hobby that feels scary at the time. Like, those are all great stresses. In terms of not resting, a lot of what it looks like is what we do with our time in between. So it comes down to not giving ourselves permission to take breaks, which our brain neurologically really needs. And when we do take a break, we tend to go to technology, which is in and of itself a stimulation. So there's nothing wrong with technology or watching your favorite show, but if that's all you're doing as recovery and you're not getting out in nature, you're not sleeping, you're not spending time in the Word, you're not praying, you're not doing all of the basic foundations as well, you're going to find that you're not feeling recovered, so that you can deal with whatever's going on in your world.
Yeah, when you go to technology to rest, you're still making decisions. You're still, when you're scrolling social media or looking at the television or on your computer shopping, you're making decisions whether or not you like this, the color, the sound. Do I want to go to the next thing? Do I like this? Do I click buy? Do I understand it? And that's still brain fatigue.
100%. And that's essentially what the neuroscience of overwhelm tells us. So we have two parts of our brain, if we want to really simplify it. It's the limbic brain, which is our emotions, and that's where we bring in all the information. And then we have our prefrontal cortex, which is the part of our brain that makes us a really wise and lovely human being. It stops us from having those big emotional outbursts, stops us from saying things we wish we didn't. But it's also the decision-making part of our brain. And the limbic part of our brain, it's like our trusty family car. We can take it on a long a cross-country vacation and it will stay stable and keep performing. But our prefrontal cortex has a very limited capacity of performing well before it becomes fatigued and in need of a break, before it can then refuel again, because it sucks oxygen and glucose from our body. So when you're, say, at work and you are using all of your prefrontal cortex to make big decisions and you're, in meetings with people and you're doing stuff, you're using that glucose and oxygen really quickly. So you actually need a break after that just to recalibrate, take a breath, take some breaths, maybe walk outside. It helps your brain re-energize again. But when we go to technology, you're 100% right. Everything our brain takes in, it has to filter. And sometimes that filtering happens unconsciously, so we're not aware of it, but it has to filter, is this something I need to pay attention to? And so if you just take a moment right now in your environment, imagine if your brain was paying full attention to absolutely everything in your environment, the feeling of your breath, the blood rushing through your body, every single element in your environment. It's too much. So one of the ways that our brain works is it filters things for us, but that requires energy. So the more we're putting in front of ourselves, requiring our brain to filter, the more we're kind of loading up that load that our brain has to sift through before it can come to decisions and then hopefully have a rest.
Wow. The book is Turn Down the Noise, which is so good. I mean, it's so true. We are constantly bombarded by noise, and not just the sound kind, but visual and physical, and it's that overwhelm. And you say that overstimulation is kind of the invisible epidemic right now in our world, and that's a big problem. Explain that to us.
Yeah, so we're seeing, obviously, the world that I work in is child and adolescent mental and emotional health, and we're seeing rising rates of mental illness and attentional diagnoses in that population particularly. But I think it's also true, and hence why you've started your work as well, is it's happening throughout populations. We're just saying chronic stress is becoming a problem for all of us, for parents, for grandparents, for everyone at every age. And there's a lot of great conversations in the topic, and I think it's multifaceted. I really don't think it's just one thing. And that's why I love what you're doing with the health. But one of the things that I felt like not many people were talking to is about the environment that's surrounding us, this overstimulated environment, because I call myself a novice gardener. I wish that I had a green thumb. I'm still learning.
Me too.
I
It's
just
so
look at
good for
people.
you to garden. I'm just like, I can't.
I look at these people and I think, you have such a beautiful garden. And so a few years ago, I got the easiest flower seeds that apparently seed, which is zinnias, and my kids and I planted them, and they were one of the first plants that ever worked for me. But one of the reasons my gardening journey made me realize, because I thought I was just killing all these plants for no reason, and I learned about gardening zones, which is essentially that not all plants flourish in every single environment. And so when a gardener looks at a plant that's not flourishing, they actually pay first attention to the environment before they look at the plant or the seed. And I think sometimes in our culture, we're doing that. We're saying, hey, that person's just weak, or they're not strong enough, or they need to be, have some more growth mindset and harden up kind of thing, without paying attention to what is it going on in the environment around them that might be leading to this behavior or these feelings or what's going on for them. And so that's essentially why I wanted to contribute this work, because overstimulation is around us all of the time. It's like that metaphor of the frog in the boiling water. It just keeps getting hotter and we're not aware of it sometimes. But it really is the environment that's framing us. Could that be something that's actually adding to why we're feeling chronically stressed all the time?
So what do you suggest? Whether it be, I know children and adolescents are kind of your forte, but I think that equates to those of us who are not children and adolescents as well. Is it turning the lights down? Is it having some silence? What is it?
Yeah, so it's anything that's de-stimulating for you. So 100% lights down. It is having breaks. I go through five practices in the book. So the first one is space for creativity and joy and play. And obviously that's a big topic for children. But I think sometimes as adults, we think, oh, that's just for kids. Kids need to have joy. Kids need to have play. And if you ask most adults, do you have activities that you love in your life? Do you have hobbies that you enjoy or things that you love to do? When was the last time you did it? Many times we can't say when the last time was. So
true.
having some space for things that we love. Slowing is another practice of having some period of time where you're not rushing towards everything.
And actually, I'm going to stop you just a second. Let's go back to number one again. When I work with health coaching clients and I go through kind of a checklist our first time we meet, and I talk about how's your sleep? How are you eating? How are you moving? How are your relationships? How's your spirituality? How's your career? One of the big questions I ask is, how's your creativity? And I will honestly 90% of the time get what's that mean? And then I'll be like, okay, things that aren't anything that we talked about just now, that you just do for fun, that get the creative side of your brain going, that you enjoy. And you're right, Sarah. Most people don't have hobbies or fun or just other things that they do that don't move the needle forward, right? That aren't producing and striving towards something. And I think that that's a big myth.
Yes, because what you just said then is the through line of everything, is that we have become so obsessed with productivity that anything that we think is a waste of time, we assume is not beneficial to our lives. And that's the definition of play and joy and hobby and creativity, is you're not necessarily starting a business from it. It's just for you.
Yeah.
It's because you love gardening or baking or sewing or surfing or bike riding or whatever it is. You love that. That fills you up. And we think, well, it's not moving something forward. It's not moving my finances forward. It's not moving my career forward. Is it moving my health forward? All of those things. And we measure it by productivity, where joy is actually measured by flow. And it's actually a core practice you need in hard times, because joy and play, it bolsters resilience. If you think about most of the hard things that we go through as an adult, they are not things that are resolved in one day. They're typically hard situations that we're going through over months and sometimes years. So if you think about your stress capacity to be able to just push through everything without having rest and having times of joy, even if those activities maybe don't make your whole life feel joyful, it's just that small thing in the moment. We don't have that. And what it does is, when we have that joy, it gives us the energy to keep going again through the hard thing.
So true. And I wish everybody would kind of think about, like, what is that I do? This goes back to that question I asked you at the top. Do you think it's healthier living in Australia than here in the United States? When my family moved out of the country for a few months to be missionaries, one of the stark contrasts for me was, in the US, we are constantly measuring our worth on productivity and striving and getting to the next step. And I felt like when we were in Mexico, that was not a thing. You didn't have to rush around and prove yourself. You could just be. And sometimes I feel like in the United States, unfortunately, we've created this culture where it is strive, produce. Even in ministry, I see that women who are serving, like, okay, I got to get it all done. I got to grow the women's group. I got to do this, as opposed to, and what the Lord calls us is not like, we are not based on works. He just wants us to just be with him. It is already done. He has done it all. It's a mindset shift for sure.
It is definitely a mindset shift. And I completely agree with you. I think that's one of the things that I've noticed, even coming back to Australia, is it's very normal here for people to take long vacations and just think, work will be there when I get back. And I remember the culture shock of moving from Australia to America, where people were like, I had a long vacation and it was a three-day weekend. And I thought, what do you mean? That's not a vacation, because I was used to this other culture. And like I said, I love so many sides of the US culture, because it's that, especially being more an entrepreneur, it's just, there's so much positivity in the environment. But I think the shadow side of that, you're 100% right, is we start to believe that our worth is caught up in it. And we start to feel all this kind of misplaced responsibility, that if we take a break, that somehow the whole world is going to fall apart. And one of the tools, emotional coping tools I talk about in the book, is loving detachment, which is our capacity to actually, at the end of a day, just give everything over. If you're a parent, it's giving over all of your stress and fears about your children. You're in work environment, it's giving over. You've done all you can do in one day. You have to trust God with it and actually leave the rest. And surprisingly, that is one of the biggest parts of the book that's had the feedback, because so many people just feel like they're white knuckling and feel like they can never just like surrender and kind of trust that things will be okay.
We'll be right back. Don't go away. It's just getting good. I do not really have much makeup on, a little bit of lip gloss, and my absolute favorite, Dr. Deness Skin Science. This is her Tinted Defense Day Cream SPF 40. You can see by my bottle that I use it every single day, and this is the supersized bottle, which is what you absolutely need. It gives me the protection that I need because it has SPF. It gives me the blur because it has those pigments. But most importantly, like all of Dr. Deness's skincare products, they actually work. She uses the most of the efficacious ingredients, and they're all clean. You know, I wouldn't talk to you about anything in your skincare or your beauty that wasn't clean beauty. This brand really has changed my skin. Listen, I'm 47 years old. I need a little extra help. I'll tell you where to start. Other than the skin defense, you're going to need Hydro Shield. Oh my goodness, the hydration. It has changed my deeply dehydrated life and makes it look like perhaps I got all the sleep and I have no stress and I didn't cry in the bathroom after my kids went to sleep at night. It really, really works. Everything does. And with clean beauty. And because we want you to have your own midlife glow up and be able to be, I don't know, maybe makeup free from time to time like I am right now. Dr. Deness has given you a little something off. Go to drdeness.com and use the code STRESSED. That's STREST for a discount. You'll thank me later. Now back to the show. There's a great quote in The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry that talks about that. The hardest part of getting rid of our stress is trusting, and I'm way paraphrasing, that if we stop, the world's going to keep spinning.
Yes.
It's not up to us. And one way to test yourself right now, if you're at home, is if you take a couple of hours just to stop and relax, or you take a long vacation, or even a day off. I talk a lot about the importance of having a Sabbath day, and I actually encourage people to take Sabbath months or year if possible. But do you feel guilty? Do you feel uncomfortable because you're not doing? Then we need to work on that and being okay with being still. What was number 2? I interrupted you and we went on a tangent.
No, it's so good. Your number 2 is slowing. It's actually giving yourself permission to have times in your life that are slowed down. And so that can be very frustrating when we're trying to rush from one thing to another, but we can actually practice slowing on purpose, which is getting in the slow lane of traffic, or walking somewhere instead of driving, or actually not going through drive-through for Starbucks, getting out of our car and walking in, or whatever, get your cup of tea or coffee. So a lot of it is actually just giving yourself permission to slow down. The third practice is simplifying and just reducing the clutter and the stuff that's around you so that your brain doesn't have to make so many decisions. And then I talk about Sabbath too, is one of the practices. And what I wanted to say too is what I love about what you're sharing is a lot of times with Sabbath, we don't know that it's not something that will just happen. We can't take time off and just kind of fall into it, because our lives are so busy and so many people are interconnected that those hours, those days, and like you said, if you're able to do a month, they get overrun. So in the Jewish tradition, when they're practicing Sabbath, the day before Sabbath is a full preparation day of everything they need to get done in order to take that break. And I think that's an important part of when you're thinking about Sabbath and you're thinking about having a rest, of actually preparing for it.
Oh, that's so good. I love all of those. And this is all in her book, by the way, so you can read more in Turn Down the Noise, which is wonderful to be able to read to kind of get to this. Backup question.
Yes.
When you were talking about the sides of the brain, what's the part of the child's brain that isn't fully developed until like they're in their 20s?
Yeah, so this is the whole thing with children is it's the prefrontal cortex. It's the part that is the self-regulation, the emotional regulation, the decision-making. So this is why it's developmentally normal. Little kids can't control their emotions. They're just giving it to you unfiltered. It is why your tweens backtalk to you. It is why your teens make decisions without understanding consequences. A lot of it is neurological. So obviously, if we can understand understand that more, we have more compassion in our approach to them, and hopefully we are kind of in a parenting role, almost like their prefrontal cortex while their own one is developing through childhood and adolescence.
Wow. So what is the age when it's kind of developed?
So it comes to foundational maturity at early adolescence. So obviously then they're starting to be able to make better decisions and have habits and control their emotions a little bit, but it doesn't come to full maturity until mid-20s.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
What are some of the signs of overstimulation or chronic stress that you see?
Yeah. So in a moment of overstimulation, essentially what you might start to feel is brain fog. Feeling like you can't intake any more information. I often joke it happens to me when all of my family members start talking to me all at the same time
Yes,
about different topics.
so
And I
true.
kind of understand it with my kids, but when my husband walks in and does the same thing while two other people are talking to me, I think, hang on, can't you see me? I can't. But then I'm always like, okay, everyone take a moment. And then it can lead to feelings of that stress where you feel like your temperature is rising, you feel clammy hands, you feel like that moment of stress. And for many people, particularly for children, but even for adults, it can lead to a big emotional outburst. So it can lead to an angry outburst or crying or emotion. And it kind of has that big moment. And so that's essentially what happens when we experience overstimulation. For children, a lot of times we see it in babies and young toddlers where they have this big, what we think is a tantrum, but we know it's because they've skipped their nap or they haven't had enough sleep the night before. And we lovingly scoop them into our arms and take them for some rest. And it's like we assume that as they get older, they don't need it. And as we get older, we don't need that. And so obviously our role with children is to come alongside them and disciple them and to grow them and to help give good boundaries. That's really, really important. At the same time, it's also important that we have compassion that they are human beings, we are human beings. No one's a machine. We all have our moments. And so being able to come alongside and give them that break when they're overstimulated and give ourselves that break is really critical.
Why don't we give ourselves compassion like we do for toddlers? And honestly, specifically women as you go into perimenopause and menopause, and it's like a second puberty in reverse, and so much is going on. We never think that, oh, I'm just overtired and this is why. Or if we do think that, okay, I'm overtired and this is why, we berate ourselves and get mad at ourselves. Power through, have another coffee. Like, come on. As
Yeah.
opposed to, like you said, and this is what the Lord does too, scoops us up in his arms and holds us compassionately and wants you just to rest. You need to rest.
I mean, I can, speaking from my own experience and so many, many of the women that I've spoken to in the context of parenting, we just feel that sense of caretaking everyone in our world and everything in our world. And so when we want to be the strong one all the time, we want to be the one that keeps powering through. And we receive these messages from our culture about what a great woman looks like. And also the integration of technology has philosophically affected us in a way that I don't think we're aware of. We assume that we have to keep pace with machines because they're driving so much of our lives. We think, well, if everyone else is doing it, everyone else, but not everyone else is doing it. Everyone else is struggling as well. And so just having that, one of the activities I give people is suggesting if your best friend came to you, like that person that you just love, your best friend, maybe it's your spouse, maybe it's your sister, whoever comes to you and they were to tell you that they were going through the same situation you were going through and they were saying, I feel so bad because X, Y, and Z. What would you say to them? Would you berate them and say, yeah, come on, you should be doing better than that? Or would you actually just sit with them and say, it's so understandable that you feel the way that you do. I'm surprised you're coping as well as you are. And wouldn't you want to just do something for them? Give them a night off, responsibilities, cook them a meal, have them over to your house and love on them. And yet sometimes it's just so hard for us to extend that to ourselves.
It is.
Essentially, that's what our relationship with God does. He, like you said, brings us in and helps us feel like, hey, the weight of the world is not on your shoulders. You don't have to hold up the world.
Yeah, it's so true. He's doing that. That's the beauty in our relationship with the Lord, is that He's doing that. What are some more practical strategies for us to be able to manage our emotions, or parents to manage their emotions as they're managing their children's emotions?
Yeah. One of the strategies I talk about in the book is interrupt the buildup. So if we think about our emotions and those moments of eruption, almost like a volcano, is kind of a metaphor I talk a lot with children, is that it builds up, and then it explodes. And then we have this big moment of eruption. If you think about the top of the volcano erupting as like a 10 out of 10, that's when you've got to your level of stress. We want to have a think about what's happening when we're more at a 6 or a 7 out of 10, because parents in particular do not give themselves enough credit for how many times they've been patient before they exploded, how many times you held your tongue before you said something you wish you didn't, how many hours have gone through in the day where you've held everything together. And so what that's doing though is every time you're using your brain's energy to do that, every time you're holding your tongue, every time you're being patient, every time you are climbing, if you're not also taking breaks, you are climbing in that number. So you're going from maybe you start the day and you're a 0 out of 10, you're climbing. Every time you hold your tongue, it's a 1, it's a 2, it's a 3. And that's why a lot of our big emotions often happen towards the end of the day, because we've just been holding it in for so long. But essentially, the tool interrupt the buildup is paying attention to when you start to feel you're a 6 or a 7. You feel agitated, but you still feel like you're in control. You feel like, hey, I can think clearly, I can walk away. And that's the moment to go and do something that's almost like a pattern interrupt. It's taking time away from the situation that's stressful, even if it's for 5 or 10 minutes. It doesn't need to be a half day at a day spa, although that's awesome. You need to do that too.
That'd be great, right?
But it could just be as simple as I'm going outside to have a cup of tea, or I'm going to water the garden. You can run your wrists under cold water is something you can do in the moment. You can just go into the bathroom or escape from family for a moment and just run it under there for 2 minutes. That's a calming spot there on your wrists. Anything that you can do, you can pray, just anything you can do to pull yourself out of that feeling of stress and agitation so that you feel like you come back in a different emotional state. And then that takes you from the 6 or 7 down again. So you've got that breadth of capacity to help regulate.
And what I'm hearing you saying is that the key is to get that point, take that 5-10 minute break before you get to the 10. Because a lot of people are like, okay, I got to take a break, I'm out of here. But by that point, you've already erupted and there's
Correct.
just a mess everywhere.
Yes. And that's when repair is a great skill to have, is coming in and, taking your time and apologizing. But yes, 100%. You want to take the break before you think you need it. And probably in your work too, you notice this. Most people only realize they need a break when all the red lights have turned on and everything's in crisis mode. But if we get good at taking small breaks, especially, and bigger ones over time, before we hit those points, you'll actually find that you've hit them less. And one of the ways that I began to realize this was on vacation with my children, because I began to notice in our normal life, and we're at school and then you come home and I've got kids and homework and everyone's emotions are everywhere. And I found myself very overstimulated at the end of the day and standing in front of the fridge and thinking, oh my goodness, what do I have to cook for dinner? I wish I had someone to come in and do that for me every night. Yet when I was on vacation and we didn't have that stress and we were just hanging out together and we were with the rhythms and there was more sleep and the kids were like playing and having fun, I didn't feel overstimulated at the end of the day. And so really that's because those extra breaks, it bolsters your capacity to handle stress. We're just running ourselves dry and then beating ourselves up that we're not doing a better job at it.
Yeah. And part of the way you know that you're doing this is, are you always saying, oh, if I could just get to Friday, or if I could just get through fourth quarter, or if I could just get through this merger, or if I could just get my mom into the assisted living that I'm waiting to get her into? If you're constantly looking to the break and the relief will come when, but what we really need to learn is that it has to be built into your day and day.
100%. We used to have, before technology, we used to have natural boundaries in our society. Shops used to close on a Sunday. We didn't used to have cable TV. There was lots of different things that just built in natural boundaries for us. And so as technology has become more and more integrated into our lives, if we don't have boundaries ourselves, we're going to feel like that all the time. We're just running ourselves ragged. And 100%, we don't want to live, you don't want to spend your life living for the next Friday, living for the next quarter, living for the next thing. You actually want to slowly build those boundaries in yourself.
I have been dreaming of doing a clinical study because that's
Yes.
fun. But,
Yeah.
and you're probably going to hear a lot about this here in the next, I don't know, a couple months of the podcast because I'm really interested in it. I'm very big on HRV, heart rate variability, which is kind of shows where your stress capacity is and how you're managing stress. I have a hard time getting my HRV up to where it should be. And I'm very cognizant of reducing stress in my life, and I've made a lot of changes. And I've noticed that my HRV is the highest. It was super high when we were missionaries, and we were in Mexico. It was extremely high when we were on vacation in Greece. And one of the things that kills HRV is alcohol, by the way. And I really don't drink alcohol, but I'll tell you what, when I was in Greece, I had a glass of wine just about every day.
Yeah.
And then it was just recently we were down at the shore and we boat a lot, and it was really high there as well. Even though I wasn't feeling great, other things were off that should have been my HRV low. And so I'm questioning, okay, is it ocean air? Is it vitamin D? Is it nature? What is it? Is it being outside? Yes, probably a lot of those things. But also I'm thinking now the 3 places that I went, in Greece, we were there in a kind of a shoulder season, and everything shut down for 2 or 3 hours in the afternoon. Like we couldn't do anything. Like we were forced to just do nothing. I read a lot, sat outside. In Mexico, when we lived there, same thing. I mean, and honestly, there weren't any stores. Like we were in a very impoverished area. And then where we go down to the shore, it's in the middle of absolute nowhere. There's no stores around. There's none of that. So it's interesting that you say that thing about forced closures, forced breaks, when you can't get access to everything all the time. Internet was slow, or we didn't have it in all 3 of those places. Might be something there.
Yeah, a lot of the times when people start sharing with me that they feel stressed, I often give them the scenario. If I sent you for a week to a cabin in the woods around nature, by the sea, whatever's your particular fancy, and in that cabin was no internet, and the only technology you had was maybe you could watch 1 or 2 old movies as a family. Like that's it. You couldn't really do anything else. And you just had to be with nature, read your books. And almost everyone says to me, oh, that would be the dream. Like it's almost like they can feel their whole nervous system slow down.
Yeah.
And I think
so true.
Technology has brought so many incredible things. Like obviously I'm able to speak to you right now from another country. Like that's incredible. But at the same time, it's become so entangled with our relationships, with our social life, with our work life, with everything. And it is a machine, meaning that it doesn't have limits. It can keep going forever at whatever speed. And we're seeing even more speed increase with AI. But we are not. We are not machines. We are human beings and we have limitations. And a lot of this work is actually wrestling with the fact that we are not limitless, that we actually have a limit that we need when we hit it. That's what overstimulation and stress is. We've hit our limit. And at that point, it's a signal for us to actually go back, take the rest, talk to God, talk to a coach about how you're kind of living your life. But those limits are the things that keep us in health. They are healthy things. It's the same with children. Children need limits. They need boundaries. It gives them a sense of security, gives them safety, gives them health in family life. And it's the same with us. But somehow I think with technology, we've just internalized this message that I need to keep up. I need to keep up. The problem is we're never going to.
Yeah, that's so true. So is rest then the key to resilience, or what else do we do to build resilience in our life?
Resilience is definitely, I think I'm talking to a community of people who rest is the key. If I was talking to other communities, I will always say you need challenge or you need some kind of meaning in your life, whether that's serving other people, serving your family, doing something creative. You need some level of challenge or something that gives you meaning, whether it's that missionary or ministry work is getting you out of bed in the morning. If you don't have that, you're unlikely to be working that kind of muscle that will help you. But again, talking about what we are talking about, for me in recovery, it sits in all of the things. It's sleep, it's creativity, it's slowing down, it's taking micro breaks, it is looking after your health. Relationships is a really important thing. When you were sharing before about Greece and the lake and everything, it actually made me think about relationships and how much meaning they give to our lives. In the longest study of human development done, the Harvard study of adult development, they actually found that it was connected relationships was more important to a person's health longevity than even cholesterol levels or anything else on their health metrics. Is did they have a sense of connection with their family or friends or community that gave them a sense of meaning when they would go somewhere. So those times that we get with each other and those times where we feel like we're connecting with one another, that's helping our health as well.
Okay, need that study. What was that? It was the Harvard what study?
The Harvard
I
study
love
of
this.
adult development.
I'm totally looking that up because it's so true. And I think that we're hearing more and more studies like that, that relationships and spirituality really are that big cornerstone, that big piece to your health. You know, it used to be how you eat, how you sleep, how you move, but relationships and spirituality just as important. And purpose is wrapped in there. And that's kind of what you were talking about.
100%.
I'm a big study geek. Like I love looking up things on PubMed and
Yeah, I will send you all the things because I'm
I
the
would love
same.
it.
I'm a bit of a nerd that way.
One more thing I want to ask you about. In the book, you talk about the overstimulation iceberg. Is that the same thing as that volcano that you were talking about?
Yeah, so it's kind of like the volcano. I think essentially, especially with parents, when we talk about overstimulation, a lot of the time people think it's overstimulation is just your senses. It's when the noise gets too loud. It's the light that gets too loud. It's all of the sensory stimulation becomes too much. And there are some people and some individuals in the population who that sensory side is they're more vulnerable to it than others. But something else I added, which is the underneath of the iceberg, which is something that we're not aware of, is all the chronic stresses in our life. It's the financial stress that we're going through. It's the pressure on our marriage. It is the deadline at work. And as these things are building up under the surface, they decrease our capacity to handle that sensory stimulation. So if you're finding yourself overstimulated a lot in your situation, you don't want to just be looking at, okay, is there too much noise? I mean, my family joke that my favorite phrase is Alexa, turn off the music when I get overstimulated. That's what I'm like, turn off
It's a
the
good
music
one,
for a
though.
second. So it could be those sensory stimulation, but it a lot of the time is triggered or you have less capacity for that because of other things that are going on. So again, if you find yourself and you've had a great conversation with a friend and you feel connected to your loved ones and you have that feeling of purpose and meaning and finances are healthy, and then you find yourself in a sensory stimulating environment, your capacity to handle that is a lot greater than if you didn't sleep properly the night before, you're feeling stressed about a fight with your spouse. Like there's just all that stuff, it builds under the surface. So being aware of that underneath the surface stuff can help you build awareness for the whole of the overstimulation and chronic stress.
It's great. It's great. Alexa, turn down the music. I love that.
Yeah.
It's a great
Turn
one.
down the noise. That's it.
Turn down the noise. That's the name of the book. So what in your life then, and are non-negotiable health practices? And they don't have to be in relation to the book or resilience, just what keeps you healthy?
Yeah. For me, it's always movement, connection to God, and emotional expression for me. So movement in this season is making sure I'm doing my walks and trying to get in the pool when I can. Spirituality for me is my relationship with God and reading the word and praying and just keeping that connection. And then emotional expression for me is talking to a few close friends and journaling. Essentially, all those things are a way I view this stress that can sit in our body. It's a way of getting it out. And it's a way of getting it out in healthy ways rather than getting it out in unhealthy ways. So they are definitely, at our previous home, we had a little garden that I used to love going out to in the mornings. And we've just moved into a new house. So I don't have that yet, but that is high on my priority list to establish because it was one of my favorite things to do in the morning. I only had a few plants that worked, but they were my joy just to go out there and be there in the morning outside.
I do feel like that is very important to have something that gets you outside in the morning. We know that your good day starts with a good morning and your good night's sleep starts with a good morning. So getting sun before screens, walking outside before you look at your devices. But I always feel like it's better if you have something to go outside for. Like for me, I have to go outside to let the chickens out. And then, I kind of tend to them a little bit, and that gets me that sun, jumpstarts my circadian rhythm. I like to go out barefoot. So I'm getting that grounding in the earth. And maybe for you, you don't have that. I still encourage you to go outside because getting sun before screens is important, but maybe finding some, maybe it is a plant that you go tend to, or it's a bird that you like to come out and look at, because birds tend to come back to the same place every morning. It's interesting.
Is that true? That's so cool. I'll have to look out for the birds. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Sarah, tell us about the book, where we can find it and where people can find you.
Yeah, so the book is called Turn Down the Noise. It's available wherever books are sold. And you can find me at Sarah Boyd on Instagram and websites, and also at Resilient Little Hearts for all child and adolescent development things.
And Sarah is Sarah.
Yes, correct.
Okay, very funny story before I let you go. My middle name is Sarah.
Is it?
And I don't know why this happened in my life, but my mom has passed, so I can't really ask her. I have a biological father and a stepfather, so neither one of them was really around enough to be able to answer these questions. But I know how to spell my middle name for the longest time. And still to this day, at times, I'll turn to my husband and I'll be like, am I Sara or Sarah? Isn't that the funniest thing? Like, we don't write our middle names very often.
No.
By the way, it's Sara. But my husband's the one who knows, okay, Kerstin, there's no H in your middle name. I'm like, why do I not really know that?
It is a thing. I feel like there was a lot of Sarahs being named where I was born. I was always in a school class with one or two other Sarahs, but like surprisingly, we were always spelt with a H. So you're very unique that way.
It has been absolutely lovely talking to you. Thank you for making the time in the future for us.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me.
Your work is super, super important, so keep it up.
Thank you so much.
Great to see you. Bye.
You're amazing.
Coming up on the next episode of StRest, we talk the Sabbath, a sabbatical, a Sabbath day. Maybe it's a sabbatical for a few months or a year. I'll share my story and what my family went through, and how once we came back from our sabbatical, we have been able to incorporate a little bit of that Sabbath, and I'm saying just a little bit, especially for the kids and the husband, me a little bit more, into our day-to-day, and why it's so important, and also what the Bible says about it. It's a whole episode dedicated to the sacred art of the Sabbath, taking a sabbatical, and how you can find that rest. It is actually going to be easier than you think. Let me help you through it so you can start to release some of the stress and get closer to the Lord. That's all coming up on the next episode of StRest. Meet me back here. If you're enjoying the show, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your reviews help others find the podcast and join our community. Follow me on social media at Kerstin.Lindquist for daily tips and inspiration. And visit my website at www.Kerstin-Lindquist.com to sign up for our newsletter and receive exclusive content. The information provided in this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be considered a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions that you may have regarding a medical condition. The host of this podcast is a certified health coach and medical researcher, not a licensed medical professional, and the content shared does not constitute medical advice. While we strive to provide accurate and up-to-date information, we encourage you to do your own research and consult with your healthcare provider before making any changes to your healthcare treatment plans. Thank you for joining me on this journey to reduce stress and make room for rest. Remember, you're not alone. Keep coming back, share your story, ask for help, and give yourself grace.